I'm here with my CT2025 Bobcat compact tractor, and I've had it for just over about 100 hours. Thought I'd just go through a couple thoughts that I have. First, looking right back here, the box blade I did not purchase with the tractor itself, but after a couple months realized I'd like to give it a shot. Having never used a box blade before, I didn't really know what I'd end up using it for. And I gotta say, I use it almost every single time I'm on the tractor, whether you're pushing or pulling dirt or scraping the ground, using the teeth, the tines to chunk it up, rip it up. I'm just using it all the time. And the lever action that's right up here next to the pilot chair, right here, is really simple and easy to lock in a position and continue using. So if you foresee yourself scraping some ground, moving dirt around, pushing it like an earth mover, highly encourage you to get a box blade. We've fortunately had about 160 loads of dirt delivered, and I've just been pushing with this setup, and it's worked out perfectly. So box blade, absolutely okay. I know there's a lot of other brands out there. I didn't really have a preference, so I went with Bobcat to match the rest of the styling. A few other things. So my front end loader, which is the FL7 series, it is really touchy. So when you're trying to do some tasks that require a deft touch, you got to be really careful about using that front bucket. Otherwise, you're just going to toss dirt or whatever you happen to be loading, whether it's rock, all over the place. So it's really touchy. It drops fast, so you can drop a load really quick, which is great if you're just moving dirt around, need to be as fast as possible. But if you want to take your time and do something, you really have to slow down and just barely touch your front bucket lever. Otherwise, you got stuff being dropped and all over the place, making a big mess. Speaking of the front bucket, I've noticed that if I've got a load of dirt or rock or whatever scooped up, and I curl it back and I'm transporting it to some other location, I've noticed that within probably 10 seconds, the bucket starts to sag. And so it's almost like the tractor loses a little bit of pressure in those hydraulics. And so I find myself touching the bucket lever occasionally to curl the load back in, just to make sure I'm not dropping anything while I'm moving it around. It doesn't act like it's going to completely fail, and it never uncurls so much to where you're going to lose like a full load. But if you happen to be going a couple 100 feet away, you don't want to toss all that dirt or rock or whatever material out of the bucket. So I do touch that lever and just recurl occasionally, as it's almost like it's losing some pressure. A word on this seat. This seat is absolutely amazing. Having spent some time on Deere and on Kubota and Mahindra seats, I was not expecting Bobcat to have a seat that was so comfortable. I can be out hitting the field pretty hard and not feel like I'm being jostled loose or my teeth rattling. This thing is really comfortable. Others that I've had, family or friends on it, have agreed. The seat itself on these compact tractors from Bobcat are just absolutely amazing. So I love that. Talking about some things that have gone wrong, I did have the only thing that was kind of a headache was figuring out why my brake pedal. Well, first let me backtrack. My cruise control stopped working. So cruise control wasn't working. I was trying to figure it out. I had a technician from Bobcat come out to the property and assess it. And they were able to get it going, and I hopped on and started driving around. There was no problem. And then the next day, it stopped working again after I'd parked it. I was like, what the heck's going on? Come to find out later, months later, this is me being stupid. I figured out that my brake pedal was depressed, constantly depressed, just barely depressed, but enough to trigger the system into thinking that the brake was on, and so cruise control would not engage. And so what it was is there's a spring here that helps the brake pedal, when you depress it, come back. That spring had been gunked up, and you can tell it's, the tractor itself is filthy right now because it's a work tractor. Been working it hard this summer. So it was just all gummed up. And so they cleaned that up. It springs forward after depressing just fine. And sure enough, cruise control operational, no problems anymore. That was the one, partially my fault for not figuring it out. But kind of frustrating experience. There is something else going on that I don't really understand, but besides being kind of a pain at times, it's not that big of a deal. And that is the transmission just seems really tight. Occasionally it'll get stuck in a gear, and then you go to start it and you need to move it back into neutral in order to start the tractor up again. And it just feels like it's stuck, and you can't move it back into neutral. And it'll also happen when you are in gear and you want to go to a higher or lower gear, and you find that you can't shift down into that high or low gear. It gets stuck. And talking to the technicians, they say, yeah, over time this will break in. And so I don't really know, but I'm going to go with what they happen to say. And I have always been able to get it to work. The workaround when it gets stuck is going to be depressing my hydrostatic forward. And I don't know, I don't understand the engineering behind it. Talk to your technicians, but that seems to allow the clutch to move into gear and not be in that stuck whatever position that it's in. Other than that, I absolutely love this tractor. It is the perfect size for our needs out here. I highly recommend Bobcat. They're doing, this is kind of a Coyote clone, but their service is great. I've had great experience having them look at it and figure things out. And they've always been very helpful, even through my frustrations with the cruise control, which is just my stupidity trying to figure it all out. And I highly, highly encourage you to look into a box blade. I really didn't think I'd ever need one when I purchased the tractor, and honestly, everybody was saying, get a box blade, you'll need a box blade, there's box blade packages, whatever. And I just kind of tossed that over my shoulder and didn't really believe it. I'm a true believer. This thing tears it up, and like I said, I'm using it almost every single time I'm on the tractor to do something. Oh, one other thing that I've done. So the box blade itself, I've got this property that we've been leveling, And it's not a great leveler. It does not level well because you got to control the height of your 3-point as you're bouncing around, and your tires go up, and then you got to drop the 3-point down, get that box blade to the ground, and it's just a mess. But it does a really good job of flattening out an area to the point where you can get a drag in, and not a dragon that flies, but get a drag and pull behind. So what I did is I actually made a drag that I just attach right back here to the box blade, raise the box blade up a little bit, and I pull it right behind. And the drag itself is just, you know, some 2x4s that I've used to span 8 foot. And it has worked beautifully. You got to go over it a bunch, but you know, if you're looking into pushing around dirt, that box blade is amazing. Anyways, hope you like hearing about the CT2025.